Hello, welcome to Introduction to Cultural Anthropology. This is the first recorded lecture where I'm going to be introducing myself and the course. First of all, let me introduce myself, right? My name is Sandoval-Cervantes. I'm a PhD in anthropology. I obtained that PhD in anthropology in 2016 from the University of Oregon. Here you can see my email address and also my office hours, which will be Fridays from 10 to 11 a.m. or by appointment. In this lecture, I want to talk briefly about what cultural anthropology is, in case you don't have a clear idea. Maybe some of you already have some sense of what this class is going to be about. Maybe some of you don't, and this is something so that we can all be on the same page, more or less, right? So first of all, what is anthropology? Anthropology is the study, in theory, right, the study of what makes us human. So anthropology has a really broad approach to understanding the many different aspects of the human experience, and anthropologists we like to use a lot of new terms, right, and we call this holism. What is cultural anthropology? Cultural anthropology is this subdiscipline, and I'm going to talk more about that in one of the next lectures. But cultural anthropology or sociocultural anthropology, depending on where you are geographically and theoretically, it's called different ways. But basically, cultural anthropology is this subdiscipline that is trying to understand how people live their lives, how people give meaning to the things that happen to them, how people sort of give meaning to their lives, to their experiences, and how they navigate the world where the meanings that they've given to specific things or people or entities can sometimes be contradicting, right? So we're trying to understand how people live their lives, how they give meaning to things, how they interact with each other, and basically how they think about life in general, right? Going back to this idea of holism, it's not only about the economy or the mind or the body, but about trying to think about the human experience as something that encompasses everything that humans experience, right? So it's not only about what we think or what we do or how we feel, but about all of those things together and interacting with one another. And that really leads me to the third question that I have here, which is, how is anthropology different from other disciplines that are similar, right? So sociology, history, economics, psychology. So when thinking about economics and psychology, for example, this idea of holism is what makes anthropology stand out. Economists are interested in understanding the cost-benefit relationship, right? Why is it that people make rational choices in some situations? What is a rational choice in the first place? Psychology is more sort of concerned with things that are in the mind, right? How does people individually process different things? Not necessarily as a collective, although there are social psychology, which is again how different individuals process things mentally. Sociology, which is a little bit more complicated, right? Because anthropology and sociology are more connected. And to sort of say this as briefly as possible, sociology really evolved to study urban societies and has sort of tended to focus on more quantitative approaches, right? So doing surveys, doing polls, doing all of these sort of bigger picture sort of research, while anthropology has really focused on more small scale societies in the past, right? That's what they used to be called, more rural societies. But also anthropology is interested in understanding the day-to-day, right? So how people are not only thinking about one specific aspect of their lives, but about their lives in general. And history, it's also really closely connected to some interpretations of anthropology. The difference, of course, is that history doesn't, the difference is a difference of method, because history is not necessarily concerned with the day-to-day interactions of people who are currently living, but rather they go through different documents, right? So cultural anthropology, we're going to talk about this next week. The main sort of method that we employed is called participant observation, which is the idea that you can only learn about other people or about your own people, right? If you're doing work with your own community, if you interact with them for a long period of time, and you interact with them on a day-to-day basis, right? You live with them, you learn about them, you see what they do every day. You have to do it yourself, because in a lot of cases you're there by yourself, so you have to learn how people do what they do so that you can survive. So that's also one of the main differences. I'm going to talk really quick about my research. My first research project when I was a doctoral student had to do with gender and migration in Oaxaca. I was mostly working in an indigenous Zapotec community in the central valleys of Oaxaca, and what I was trying to understand is the difference between men and women in the ways in which they migrate, and how masculinity and femininity is constructed as people move, right? And what sort of movements, what sort of migrations make people question certain gender roles, but maybe not others. And basically what I found is that men in this particular community, Santa Ana Segache in Oaxaca, men tended to move to the U.S., to Oregon in particular, more than women, while women migrated to Mexico City. Now the argument is that of course a lot of men migrated to the U.S., and this was part of their masculine narrative, their narrative of masculinity, right? I did this really long trek, and I work in these really difficult jobs, backbreaking jobs, but I can take it because I'm a man, right? While women would migrate to Mexico City in the hopes that they'd be closer to their family members in case they had to come back. But in a lot of cases, going to Mexico City also allowed women to get to know other women. Mexico City is a huge city, right? So there's a lot that women who had never even been to a city suddenly find themselves in this huge city where they are learning all of this new stuff. And they also start thinking differently about their gender roles. And I'm happy to talk about this if you have any questions. Now, my current research has to do with animal rights and activism in Ciudad Juarez, and I'll be brief, right? This is a project that I'm currently doing field work for, that I'm currently thinking about. So this has to do with why is it that people decide to engage in animal rights activism in contexts that are violent. What obstacles do they face? What is the overlap in the way in which violence is represented and experienced for humans and non-human animals? And for this research, what I'm doing or what I've done in the past, what I hope to be doing in the future, is basically I follow different organizations around and see how they interact with animals, with other people, how they talk about what they're doing. So I see what they're doing and also how they talk about what they're doing, and try to understand what is it that people, what's the difference between what people say and do, and how this has to do with larger issues of violence and justice. Okay, so for this course, all of the materials are going to be on Canvas, not on Blackboard like this slide says here, but on Canvas. You only have to buy one book. This book is Renegade Dreams by Lawrence Rolfe, who has written a lot on gangs in Chicago and also on police violence in Chicago. His new book is on police violence, so you can check it out if you're interested. That's the only book that we're gonna be reading. Everything else is gonna be articles and book chapters that you're gonna find on Canvas. Really briefly, you're going to have to do the readings, of course. There's going to be weekly quizzes that are going to be 40% of your grades. There are going to be no late submissions. You can miss up to 2 quizzes. They're going to be multiple choice, less than 10 questions, probably around 5. and they're gonna be open on Thursday to Sunday, and you have to go to come to do the readings, listen to the lectures, or at least look through the PowerPoint slides, and then try to answer these quizzes. You're also going to have 3 short written assignments, 20% each, in weeks 4, 8, and 12. You're going to have to write a short reaction, analytical reaction to either a podcast or a documentary. I'm going to give you options, and you have to select from those options which podcast or documentary you want to review or write about, right? So you cannot just write about any documentary that you saw last night. You have to pick one of these documentaries and try to connect them to their readings. Those are all of the assignments, so it's pretty straightforward. And if you have any questions, let me know. There might be extra credit activities. I don't know. It's a weird semester, so I'll let you know if there's that possibility. The next readings are these two, Body Ritual Among the Nasurema and What is Anthropology. They're very short, so I would recommend you read them and you'll be prepared for the next couple of lectures. Thank you.